and I am founder of Costa Women, which is a women's community based in mainland Spain. And we're delighted this afternoon to be joined by various experts who are going to be talking about what they are finding the current state of the market is, and also the challenges that they're currently facing too, and also answering a lot of your questions. So if I could just start by introducing Alex Radford. Alex, good afternoon.
Hi Ali, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. So Alex, what's keeping you busy at the moment?
So Ali, first of all, I'm an English solicitor and Spanish lawyer, lived in Spain now for nearly 30 years. We act primarily for English-speaking clients buying, selling and inheriting property across Spain and the islands. We've got a lot of people buying property at the moment. Again, all over Spain, from Galicia down to the Canaries, Lanzarote, Fuerteventura, Gran Canaria, and then across the mainland Spain as well, particularly Costa Blanca, Costa del Sol, and then sadly we're dealing with some inheritances as well. Some of them are COVID related. British people who've passed away either here in Spain or in the UK, so we're dealing with those inheritances. And also at the moment we've got 2 people working flat out helping British people apply for residency before the end of the year. So that's keeping us quite busy at the moment. And it's going to be a very busy year end. And when we hang up the close for business on the 31st of December, I'll breathe a sigh of relief.
So I'm sure the main question you're getting asked at the moment is there still time to get a residency, and on what's actually necessary to get the paperwork together?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, if you're basically, people are going to be here before the end of the year to be able to prove that they are living here, that they're spending in the supermarket, spending at restaurants, and they've got to register on the census, got to get their bank statements together. Depending on the age, if they're over the age of 65 or retired, they can basically apply for Form S1 in the UK. That entitles them to plug into Spanish healthcare system. If they're under the age of 65, if they're working, they can register as self-employed or through their employment. They can, if they're employed by a company, then they can receive healthcare. So health kind of insurance or provision through an employed status, money in the bank account, and on the padron, rental property or owning a property is sufficient to get you residency. I've got someone calling me up. Well, someone's instructed us today to purchase property, and it's just so we're starting the purchase now, and they want to move out before the end of the year. So it's tough, So I think anyone who is starting the process should start as quickly as possible. So start to collect bank statements, get your health insurance in place, get your property lined up for rental to purchase, come out to Spain. The very next day, when you've arrived in Spain, register on the padron, and then we submit the application online. And all the applications are being submitted online at the moment. And as I said, our experience is that the authorities are coming back, and depending on the authorities in the Canaries are quite good. They're not asking for as much information, but other authorities are asking for proof that you're actually living here and you're incurring expenses. So you're going down to the supermarket, you are spending money in the bars and restaurants. So yeah, there is time, but it's getting tighter and tighter.
Yeah. And one of the rumours that's going around at the moment is that if you apply for your T.I.E, so you're a resident and you've been living here 5 years plus, and you apply for your new T.I.E card, that you automatically become a Spanish tax resident. Is that correct?
Well, you just say if you've been here for 5 years. What we've got to distinguish is if you live in Spain for more than 6 months a year, and the tax year is a calendar year from the 1st of January to the 31st of December. So you're in Spain for more than 6 months in 1 year, then you become a Spanish tax resident and you pay tax in Spain on worldwide assets and income. And also, if you have any other overseas assets, so property in the UK or elsewhere, or bank accounts over the value of 50,000 euros, you have to declare that as well in Modelo 720. So people who have got a residency card but spend less than 6 months a year here can update their existing residency card to the T.I.E, but that doesn't mean that they become a Spanish tax resident. You only become a Spanish tax resident when you've been here for more than 6 months in a calendar year. Okay.
Right.
But what we are finding, Ali, is that you know, and this may change, especially for the British people obtaining residency in Spain, is that if you obtain residency and you're here for less than 6 months a year, so you're not a tax resident, and you get your T.I.E card now, then in 5 years' time, when you come to renew it, it might not get renewed if you have not spent more than 6 months in Spain, which is kind of a bit of it's an oxymoron, because you know you don't want to become a tax resident spending more than 6 months here, but you do want your residency renewed in 5 years' time. So at the moment, I'd recommend anyone spending more than 3 months here, apply for your residency, get your residency, and then in 5 years' time we'll see where the land lies. And so that's kind of, you know, interesting at the moment. That kind of little bit of an oxymoron. You know, you might not get it renewed in 5 years' time. But what is important, Ali, is at the moment, so us British people living in Spain with a green residency card, we've got no obligation to change it over to the T.I.E card at the moment. But I've just put in my application for mine to be renewed. And when I was speaking to the lady down at the police station, she said, you know, it's not an obligation now, but next year it will be. So all of us at the moment, we're kind of sitting pretty saying, I've got my green residency card. I think I would recommend that British people do apply for their T.I.E card, you know, really as soon as they can, probably start that next year now, because it's a really valuable document to have. You know, it's got a photographic ID on it. It's got a chip in there, and we can flash that at the airport with our British passport. So it's a real useful document to have, and it means that you don't have to go, you know, carry your passport around for identification purposes.
Yeah, good. Okay, that's brilliant advice. So if anybody's got a question for Alex, could they please put it into the chat box, and we will do the question and answers at the very end of this webinar. So thanks, Alex. Next, I'd like to talk to Natasha Leyland of EBF Consulting. Natasha, I need to unmute you. Good afternoon. How are you?
I'm very well, thanks, Ali. How are you? You good?
Oh, good, thank you. So tell us what you're actually focusing on at the moment for your business, and a bit about your business, what you actually do.
Yeah, okay, well, EBF Consulting is a tax consulting firm. We've got quite a corporate level there as well, but for the purpose of today, I think just to say that, you know, we deal with anybody that's moving over to the Canaries, whether they're moving over here as a pensioner, need us to prepare their asset report, like Alex was mentioning before, their asset report, their annual income tax return. And then we've also got the non-resident taxation side as well for those people that are purchasing over here. We take part quite actively with the Canarian public organisations with regards to promoting the Canaries as a destination, which we have been doing over the last couple of years, and we've seen a movement in that for people to telework in the Canaries. And we've had quite a few people over the last 6 months. That has escalated even more so, and there is a plan also for the government that are going to be trying to promote the Canaries as a destination for those teleworkers, which is something that since we've gone into lockdown, a lot of businesses realise that this is a very feasible thing to be able to offer to their employees, or their employees are thinking, you know what, I'd rather live in a safe environment, which is what we're promoting the Canaries for as well at the moment. This is going to be a lugar seguro. We've got the green light over here for travelling, and that's something that they're going to be working on. Well, are currently working on I think it was last Sunday, the legislation for tourism was published, where if people were coming on holiday, they needed to have their vaccine. But that's continuing. So that's what we're doing at the moment. We've had lots and lots of consultations with people all the way through Spain, not just in the Canaries, with regards to what happens if I apply for my residency, as Alex was correctly saying. You know, does that mean I'm going to have to pay all of my taxes in Spain? And that's where we start informing them of the difference between having that T.I.E and becoming a tax resident in Spain.
Okay, so there is a lot of myths around becoming a tax resident in Spain, aren't there? And whether you should do your residency, because people automatically think that you will become a tax resident. And also signing on the padron is another big thing that people don't want to do it because they think it affects their tax. So can you clear up some of those myths?
Yeah, I think at the moment, with Brexit happening, obviously on the 1st of January, those people that want to stay in Spain within that 180-day period for more than 90 days actually aren't going to have a choice. They're going to have to apply for the T.I.E, aren't they? But what then they have to be aware of is that they don't exceed the 183 days between January and December, which then means they're going to have to become a tax resident of Spain. So I think the advice that we're generally giving out to people is, just be very careful that if you do not want to be considered a tax resident of Spain, because it's not a choice, and be aware that now the tax authorities are going to have an extra piece of information available for them to perhaps start asking questions at a later date to those people that have acquired the T.I.E, where there might be an element of doubt on whether they are tax residents or not, and therefore they might be using that as a reason to be able to request that they prove that they are not a tax resident of Spain and that they are a tax resident in another country.
Yeah, okay. So if I decide I do want to become a tax resident of Spain, what are the actual tax obligations that I have?
Right, okay, so if you were to become a tax resident of Spain, that would mean that you've been from January to December for that 183 days, okay? So in that instance, the first return that you would have to present if you were subject to presenting it would be the asset report, which is the Form 720, and that's presented in February and March. That's why it's really, really important that anybody that's making that change speaks to a tax consultant when they get out there, preferably before they become a tax resident, so that they can then manage their assets accordingly or arrange their assets accordingly by speaking to a financial advisor in a way that when they become tax resident here, they've already made decisions on, say, for example, cash lump sums on pensions, if they've got ISAs, etc., and make all the arrangements before they become a tax resident. Because once they are going to become a tax resident here, they're going to be subject to tax on that kind of income. So okay. Going back to the question with what returns would they be presenting, the first one would be their asset report. If in the 3 blocks they've got there's 3 blocks of assets, one's bank accounts, one's property, and one is investments and certain pension funds. If each block has an accumulated value of €50,000, if one block has an accumulated value of €50,000, then they've got an obligation to present the asset report for that one block. We have got quite an informative website, so if anybody wanted to go onto that website and just click down to the bottom, they'll see asset report. All of the information on that's there. And then in May and June, they would have to present their annual income tax return. These returns that I'm referring to are always going to be based on the previous year. So if somebody was to become a tax resident in the year 2021, then they will have to submit their tax return in 2022. Okay, and also mention that those people that it's been ruled by the courts that those people who have been in Spain for more than 183 days during the year 2020, they're not able to use the excuse of it's because of COVID that we've been here extra. They are at the moment under current studies saying that they are going to consider them as tax residents of Spain. It's not a choice, and that's whether you've applied for your residence certificate or not.
Yeah, that's very important information to share, because Spain tax you on worldwide earnings as well, don't they? Exactly.
Even if you've paid tax, there's going to be some sources of income, for example, like rental income from property. The rental income is always going to be tax on rental income is always going to be due in the country where the property is located. So therefore, if you are here in Spain, but you've got a property in the UK, then the UK will expect you to pay tax there first on that rental income, not on any other income. And then you would declare it in Spain as taxable income along with all your other income, and you would offset the tax that you've paid in the UK as a credit to avoid double taxation.
Okay, and if I bought a holiday home in Spain, so I'm not going to become a Spanish tax resident because I'm only planning on coming out here, less than 180 days. Every so often I come out to visit. Does that mean I don't have to pay any tax in Spain?
No, you still have to, so you have an annual return to present, even if you're not renting the property out and you're using it for private use. you would need to appoint a fiscal representative to prepare that tax return for you, which is an annual return. It's based on the catastral value of the property. It's about the same as what you would be paying in local council tax to the town hall every year, but that's an additional tax that you would have to pay. And it's important that that's mentioned, because there are a lot of people that come, that tax, private use tax, doesn't exist in the UK. So you'll get people that have purchased property over here and may not have been informed that they have that annual return to present. And they'll think, oh, well, I'm not receiving any rental income, so there's no need for me to say anything to the tax authorities, but they do need to present their tax as a non-resident.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you. Well, thank you, Natasha, for the time being. Again, as I mentioned, if you've got any questions for Natasha, please do pop them into the chat box and we'll answer them at the end. So next, I'm going to introduce Karen Cochrane of T.I.E. Condado. Hi, Karen. You're muted at the moment, so I'll unmute you.
Hi, everyone. How are you? Lovely to be here.
So, Karen, do you want to introduce yourself and also tell us what you've been doing since the lockdown and how things are where you are in Tenerife?
Okay, my business, TaraBiz Condado, was set up some 27 years ago. I was the first qualified administrador de fincas, which is a community administrator, registered here in Spain. All those many moons ago. I've been here in Spain and Tenerife for the last 33 years. So I've got a wealth of experience of business, etc., etc. So within our business, we are termed what we call in Spain an asesoría. So we do business, taxes and property taxation as well. And at the moment, I've actually come out of the cupboard, as well as the Americans, or the as Americans might say, of the closet, in that I've been doing crystal therapy for the last 20 years. So I'm a qualified administrator, tax consultant, but at the same time, I also work very closely with business owners with their energy, and I use crystals as well in that. So it's a very, very unusual scope. So what have I been doing? Because of COVID, I felt drawn to help people in business keep their energy high vibing, because hope is what will see us through, plus good business strategy, and the two things can go hand in hand. So that's what we've been doing since March. I've always been, for the last 5-6 years, done an almost daily Facebook Live about some sort of business or taxation issues. And recently it's been 2 or 3 videos daily to help people with their ERTE, which is the furloughing for their business, for the workers themselves, working on exit plans if they're necessary. And very, very clearly, we've got a division that handles the VV, which is the Vivienda Vacacional, which are the holiday lets. And that is where a lot of people are actually, a lot of British people are saying that they need to legalize their property. And they have to, again, come out of the closet, as our American friends might say, because the fines are succulent. They're very, very beefy. And with the travelers coming over and having to have the QR code and prove their destination, this is something which will open Pandora's box for a lot of the property owners. And it's not fear-mongering, it's not scaremongering. It's the God's honest truth that a lot of people have been getting away with not paying their tax, not declaring tax. It's been the friends and family syndrome for many, many decades now. And people are going to have to get their house in order, never better said. So that's what we've been doing, trying to keep the vibe high, enjoy, be an inspiration for people with their businesses here in the Canary Islands, and at the same time promote, as Natasha was saying, promote the Canary Islands as, sorry the rest of you guys that are off in other parts of Spain, but the Canary Islands is amazing. So that's who I am and what I've been doing the last 6-7 months.
Okay, Karen, thank you. So as you mentioned, if you have a Spanish property, you have to pay tax to the Spanish tax authorities, even if you don't rent it out. Is that correct?
Yeah, Natasha touched on that, and it's a very clear thing that people get confused between the rates, the IBI, and the annual tax obligation, which is through, at least in the Canary Islands, we do it through Hacienda, which is the Spanish equivalent of the inland revenue. And that must be presented for the previous year, every single year. And it is a residual own use tax, would be my loose Irish translation of the thing. So people have this misunderstanding. They sort of all tend to blame the estate agents. So one of the things that I've always insisted on is, you know, keep on repeating the Facebook Lives, keep on repeating the posts across the social media so that people get the gist. You have to pay a tax, even if it's just, if you genuinely are not renting the property out, you have to pay a tax. And it's not a huge amount of money, but it is something that is an obligation that people have to do every single year.
So what are the current rules in the Canary Islands about holiday lets?
I think that there's the current rules that have been in place for quite some while, and there's what I would call two divisions. We have what I would call exploitation, touristic exploitation, which where you have under Article 38 of the tourism law, you have to have 1 unit of exploitation per community or per residential area. That is if it's a pure, what I would call touristic exploitation, and the majority of the owners are actually underneath that legal umbrella. So that's what I would call pure tourism. Then we have the other section where the Canary government have little by little, and the hoteliers have realized that not everyone wants to come to a hotel. A lot of people do want self-catering and they do want a villa, etc., etc. So they created this figure called VV, Vivienda Vacacional, which is purely translated would be a holiday let, so that it gives the possibility of people legalizing their property for rental. And it means that they can do their rental in a legal fashion. So it's not just a matter, I think it's got the duality in this that people have got to realize. It's not just a matter of paying taxes. You also have to have a legitimate foundation to be able to put that property on the market as a rental, a holiday rental income. Okay.
Okay, thank you. And with regard to paying tax, do you pay tax throughout the year? Is it a one-off payment at the end? How does it work?
How long have I got? The situation, I think if people want a little bit more detail, they can connect with us. We have, as I said earlier, quite an active Facebook page and YouTube channel for that purpose. However, in a very brief format, if you're doing, I defined the touristic exploitation. So if you're renting through a company that's established here in the Canary Islands and that rent your property, you rent through them, they will have a withholding tax obligation on every rent that you have. They will hold back a percentage of that. And every 3 months, they will pay that tax into the tax office's coffers on your behalf. At the end of the year, they will give you a certificate which will certify how much money you've actually earned and how much retention, how much you brought in and how much retention tax has been paid by them on your behalf. And I also ask my clients, because we do a lot of this non-resident taxation, I also ask them to insist that they define how many days per year they've actually been rented, because if not, the law says that you have to pay the residual tax. So it's a 365 day per year. If you've rented your property 300 days, you pay the tax on the income. And then on the other hand, you have to pay the residual tax on own use for the rest of the year. All right, so that's a point that a lot of people miss out on, and it's worth mentioning. The other situation would be if it's what they call in Spanish autoliquidación, that you, on a 3-monthly basis, actually present your tax returns as an owner, as a diligent taxpayer. And that would be, you pay the tax on the income you've generated, but most importantly in the Canary Islands, we have to register people for the EIC or the Canarian VAT. Now, each case is different, so it could be that they're actually exempt for EIC or VAT, but they have to go through, so it's, you know, the motions and present the paperwork accordingly. So yes, you have to pay tax. It could be that you have to pay tax at the end of the year. It could be that you have to pay tax through the year. So it's important that you know, we've got quite a few very, very good professionals on this Zoom call. So it's important to connect, if not with us, with someone who actually knows their stuff and can look at your specific case. That's, I think, what I would advise owners to do. I hope I haven't confused. I hope I've given you clarity on with my reply.
Yeah, brilliant, thank you. And as mentioned earlier, if you have another question for Karen, please put it in the chat box and we'll respond to you at the end. So my next speakers are the team from Blacktower, Tim and Lucia. Guys, are you there?
Good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Tim. Good afternoon.
Good to see you all again, and thanks for putting this event up again. Yeah, my name is Tim Govers. I'm in charge of the local Blacktower office, and I see here my colleague Lucia on the call as well. Well, yeah, Blacktower Financial Management, what do we do? We've been around for 30-odd years, helping mainly the expatriate residents here across Europe, assisting them with their financial goals. And our typical client is someone that has been living here in Spain or has recently moved here and just wants to have a look at his or her situation. And after they've met with Alex or with Natasha, who told them about the residency, etc., they often come to us asking, well, what impact is going to have that residency or fiscal residency, if that were to be the case, on my assets? So what we do is we take a holistic look at their situation, their finances, mainly their financial assets like investments and pensions, and look at how that could be taxed here in Spain, if they're going to be worse off, because many people have in their mind that the Spanish taxman is going to take everything away from them, and that inheritance tax is huge here. And there's a lot of these hurdles, and we try to demystify these hurdles and these objections that they have in their mind. There's a lot that people can do, and I totally agree with what has been mentioned before by, I believe it was Natasha, that residency is not a matter of fact. If you spend here most of the time, then you're considered, you're deemed a tax resident, and that it's important to start planning ahead and speak to both your financial advisor in the UK and a financial advisor local to you of what effect that it has. And what we're dealing with at the moment, for example, are many people that are getting into the system, getting their T.I.E sorted by Alex, for example, and then if they were to become a fiscal resident, having a look at whether they still need to sell some of their assets. A good example are ISAs, which are tax-free in the UK. They're not here in Spain, but equally if they own property, for example, and if they plan to sell that, then it's better to sell that property in the UK whilst being considered their main residence, opposed to not their main residence if they were to be a resident here in Spain. So that's who we are and what we do.
Okay, so there's the next three are the key questions I think a lot of people are asking at the moment, because particularly the first one or two, I don't think people realise of the impact of Brexit. So Brexit could have an impact on investments that people have in the UK, because UK IFA will no longer be qualified to give advice to you, will it?
Well, that's correct, and it has everything to do with passporting rights and whether there's going to be reciprocal agreements in place in time. So what we see is that quite a lot of financial institutions and financial services companies have been writing to their clients, telling them that basically, we can't serve this date to move your assets away from us, because otherwise we would have to close your accounts. There's a few of the big banks that have done that. With financial advisors, a lot of people living in Spain still use a UK financial advisor, which is fine, because many times people have quite a good relationship with their financial advisor if they had been working together with for many years. And then it will really depend on the company that the financial advisor works for in the UK, whether that company has an EU hub as such, or an EU an office based within the European Union from where they can then further passport their rights. If that's not the case, then you're absolutely right, Ali, that those financial advisors may not be able to look after their clients anymore post-Brexit. We receive quite a lot of inquiries in that scenario.
Yeah, and the other question I'm seeing a lot on social media is the story that Barclays have actually been saying that they can no longer service your UK bank account for you if you're based in Spain. You've got a Spanish address and not a UK address. So what can people do?
Is basically close that bank account, close that account and move it, cash it in, or move it to another provider. There's a few high-profile banks that have written to their clients. Barclays is one of them. Coutts, the well-known Bank of the Wealthy, is another one. Lloyds have done so as well. So what people can do is move their assets away. We believe it's not. Sometimes it's not even that much of an issue. If it's a straightforward bank account, people living in Australia or in Canada, for example, could still have their account with Barclays. Sometimes we think there's a commercial reason behind it because of the fact that these banks in UK, they have financial instruments, investments, etc. as well that they offer. So it's not an issue to have a bank account with them. But if that bank like Barclays can't offer you investments anymore that are subject to EU regulation, then they have no commercial interest in you anymore. What can people do if it's a bank account? Well, move it to other bank accounts. Sometimes people have in their mind that they're not very comfortable with having a lot of money in Spain for whatever reason. That might be just an objection in their head. But if a Spanish bank account could equally be a solution, they're protected up to 100,000 euros. Equally, as in the UK, your money would be protected with a bank up to £80,000. So there's no issue there. There's offshore accounts, that sterling accounts that still, for which you don't need a UK address, but that would allow accounts from Spanish-based clients. So there's solutions. And obviously for the investment side, if you become a Spanish resident, if you have a Spanish address and you're therefore a Spanish resident here, you're living here most of the time, then it might be even the better, it usually is even the better solution to move it into something what we call Spanish compliant, so that complies with local legislation and that would benefit from certain tax benefits, which investments in the UK would not necessarily do. So having said that, it often doesn't mean bringing your money into Spain. Again, not that something's wrong with that, but we find that sometimes people are uncomfortable with that. But Spanish compliant would mean that it would need to be in an EU jurisdiction, and the default jurisdictions there would be typically Ireland, Luxembourg. They're important centers for investments, and they report back to Spain automatically, and in many ways they're EU compliant and benefits that people would have had in the UK as being a UK resident.
Okay, so basically don't panic because there are some solutions out there for you.
There are solutions, but we noticed specifically for Barclays, for example, they did put a deadline on it. It's okay. For Barclays, I've seen the letter and it's the 4th of December, and it literally says, if your money is not out before the 14th of December, we will have to close your account. Okay. So it's quite strong language. Yeah. So, but not all banks do it. So it's difficult to really identify what the correct way forward there is.
Okay, yeah, so shop around. So there's obviously a lot of uncertainty at the moment in the world. So is it still a good time to invest?
Well, that's a question that we nearly get on a daily basis. We had three unknowns, three big unknowns. The presidential elections, of course, which now seems to give, it's pretty clear that Biden will become the president. So we've got one answer there. The other two questions are Brexit. We'll probably know more about that in 2 months' time. And there's obviously COVID. Well, yesterday there was some good news from Pfizer, so that had a very positive effect on global markets. So is it a good time to invest? Well, there will always be uncertainty. The reality is that at the moment, interest rates, bank interest rates, are very low and will remain low for the time coming. And there's a lot of the Bank of England just confirmed that their base rate will remain at 0.1%. That's historically low. If that's so low, then you will not get any significant rate of interest at a bank. So for long-term savings, anything that you want to keep that you don't need within the next 12 months, there's better solutions, as your money will be eroded by inflation. So by default, then is it a good time to invest? Well, markets will be volatile, but there's always, if you have quality investments, people think of the stock market as the alternative for bank accounts, but there's a whole range of types of investments in between. And if we look at the past years, then it's shares of companies, equities that have done well. This year, even with the COVID crisis, a lot of markets are up. Clients' portfolios are up. There's a lot of stimulus from the governments. As long as governments keep on pumping money into the system, that will find its way to companies that are supported and hence investments. So is it the time? Well, it's difficult to time the market rightly, but A, there's no alternative, and B, if you have time on your side and you have quality investments, then you'll, history or the past years have proven to be very beneficial. So try not to time the market, but be in the market, and we'll take our clients' hands along the line and help them.
Brilliant, thanks, Tim. And now I'm going to move over to Deepika Harajani. Deepika, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Hi,
Thank
Deepika.
you so much, Ali, and all of you to have me here today.
You're very welcome. So you're also waving the Canarian flag too, aren't you?
Yes, and I'm actually today in Lanzarote.
Okay.
So yeah.
So tell us about Age in Spain.
Great. So Age in Spain is one of the 3 organizations that provide practical support to UK nationals that actually might experience some difficulty with doing the residency application or registration, which Alex and some other colleagues did mention earlier. We are one of the organizations that has been funded by the UK government. And our aim is to ensure that British nationals that want to continue to live in Spain receive one-to-one information. We are aware that there is a lot of uncertainty, so we have like a free helpline where we offer information. We can inform them about the procedures and what documents do they need. Some people want to do them themselves, but we just give them the information, and some people prefer to get professional advice to weigh the decisions. But our aim is to reach especially to those that are very vulnerable, who might be living in remote areas, who might be lacking internet, and we offer that additional kind of one-to-one support. So that's our work. The areas we cover, and that's one of the reasons I'm here in Lanzarote. And in Spain, we offers that support to Catalonia, Balearic Islands, and now the Canary Islands. And there are other 2 organizations. One of them is Babelia, that covers Alicante and Valencia and Castellón area. The other one is IOM, which covers the Costa del Sol, Andalusia, Murcia, and Madrid. But we also have like a website and our Facebook page. Both of them are people who are in different parts of Spain can have access to it, and they can see the information. We publish newsletters where we put updates, that the UK government kind of launches, and also the Spanish authorities, because we are kind of the link between the UK government and the most vulnerable.
Okay, so we've already mentioned residencia, but something we haven't actually talked about is driving licenses. So what do you need to do if you're traveling with a UK driving license and you've just become a resident in Spain, or you're thinking about it?
Okay, so in Spain, if you are a resident in Spain, you should exchange your driving license into a Spanish one. At the moment, you can still drive back in the UK when you go on holidays with your Spanish driving license. And knowing about the future, that's all about the future negotiations, but everything is published and it will be published you know, on our Living in Spain webs, and also like in our Agent Spain website. But at the moment, the recommendation is for people to swap the UK driving license to Spanish one if they intend to continue living in Spain beyond the transition period, beyond the end of December, 31st of December of this year. Now, I am aware that some people are struggling to get appointments, and some people have even shared that they have got appointments already for next year. It is important that they can keep proof that they have tried to book an appointment, or that they already have booked it before this year, but they are actually going to have one next year. Today, I heard that there were some appointments for Lanzarote, and the latest were for the 23rd of December. So keep flagging up, you know, like if you contact us, you can keep flagging us issues with the driving license. I know that the UK government is currently trying to also speak with the driving authorities to see if there is going to, they're going to launch something in place similar to what they did back in October, where people had to fill a form and at least submit that form before the end of when we were thinking there was Brexit Day. But at the moment, the current situation is that people need to try and sort that out. It also, and different offices, because this is different in every locality, but some people, for example, have started the step 1 of the T.I.E. So people that didn't have the green residency and are now applying for residency because they just moved from the UK, for example, if they have like a positive resolution, you know, where it says that you are granted, you know, and they're just waiting for an appointment to get the fingerprints done, with that resolution, at least in Lanzarote, they should be able, you know, to change the driving license, and it should be the same in other offices in the Canary Islands, but we can always talk more about it.
Brilliant. Okay, good. So if anybody's got a question for Deepika, could they just stick it into the chat and we can deal with it at the end. Lucia.
Hello, good afternoon. How are you?
Good.
Thank you very much for, oh yes, a bit of echo here. Thank you very much for being our moderator. Thank you very much, as
You're
always.
welcome. Very welcome.
Just let me put the silence back because I muted myself. Yes, sorry about that. Yes, so Ali, basically I wanted to ask you a couple of questions because you've been taking, conducting the questions today, but of course most of the people want to know why have you created the community for women coming to live to Spain? Why have you done that years ago?
Okay, well, yeah, sure. Well, I created Costa Women back in 2010, basically because I wanted friends. We had moved here and it was quite difficult to make connections locally. So I decided to create my own community to try and help support women that were moving to Spain. And it's just grown from there, really. And we're nearly at 10,000 members. We also are looking at expanding our Costa Women base to the Canary Islands at the moment. So we do have a few members there, but we're looking at expanding over there too.
Wow, that's amazing. And what kind of support do you offer to the people that are joining Costa Women?
We put them in touch with experts who are able to support them locally. So we look specifically for people that are experts in the specific areas where the Costa Women members are moving to. We also help them before they arrive. I created an online platform called Spain Expo that has lots of videos and information about moving to Spain. And when they get here, we have 38 groups that meet together in different parts of Spain, as well as a website that has things like jobs. When we see a job that we think would suit somebody, that gets put up on the website. And there's all sorts of different things that we do through the community over the course of the year. I mean, since March, we've hosted over 200 Zoom events to try and keep women upbeat and positive, a bit like Karen mentioned.
Wow. And how can women get involved into the community before even they arrive? Is that possible?
Yeah, it is. They just register at costawomen.com. It's completely free to join us. And then we'll put them in touch with local people, either in the area they're thinking about moving to or where they're currently living, so that they can start making connections and asking the important questions before they arrive.
Wow, that's lovely. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. So I think we had just a couple of questions. So when applying for the residencia T.I.E. and filling out the S1, does it mean that when going back to the UK, you are no longer able to get UK healthcare? Alex, can you answer that one?
Yeah, this is a real tricky one, Ali. We've just had clarification from the S1 office recently, and basically, what they say is, if you're applying for Form S1, it does actually mean you're moving to Spain and you will be entitled to Spanish healthcare as a result of the treaty between the UK and Spain, and therefore you will no longer require UK healthcare. So technically, they should then, basically take you off the doctor's roll in the UK. But from what I understand, that's not actually happening in practice. And people are obtaining the Form S1s, and they can still receive healthcare in the UK. But basically, the Form S1 unit said to us that if you are moving to Spain and you're not resident in Spain as a tax resident, so more than 6 months, for which you would require Form S1, if you're not that kind of tax resident, you're the person staying in Spain for less than 6 months, well, actually, you should have travel insurance in place, right? So that is an alternative. So you can, but travel insurance wouldn't be sufficient to get residents in Spain. You'd actually need medical insurance, full medical insurance with no co-payments. So I think if you're moving to Spain, lock, stock and barrel, more than 6 months, then yes, get Form S1 and you will lose your UK healthcare. If you don't want to lose it, then you can basically obtain Form S1, but then kind of you don't. A lot of people come to Spain and actually don't register that Form S1 with the Spanish authorities. It's only when they get Form S1 and they say, great, I've got Form S1. But what they should then do is then go and register with Social Security here, and get the Social Security card. But they're not doing that, and that would trigger them being taken off the doctor's role in the UK. So that's the kind of, it's a bit of a grey area, I must say, at the moment. But my advice is, if you're coming to Spain, living here for more than 6 months, take out health cover, fully comprehensive health cover. If you're here for less than 6 months, I'd say take out comprehensive health cover as well. And there is lots of decent brokers around who can give you really good quotes, and you'll be surprised. I'd get it from a Spanish broker because it'd be much cheaper than a UK-based broker.
Yeah, brilliant. Good. Okay. Well, I don't know if anybody's got any other questions. There's no more questions in the chat. So if not, I think that's...
Ali, I'm just going to add something else. I mean, okay, Topeka mentioned this, about basically changing your driving license. Again, if you're here for more than 6 months a year, then I would definitely recommend changing your driving license. In fact, it's an obligation. But if you're here for less than 6 months, I wouldn't be inclined to do so, because that means you're basically cancelling your home driving license for a Spanish one, and then basically you're spending more time in your home country. So I would keep my home driving license if I'm spending more than 6 months in my home country, but then maybe take out an international driving license.
Okay. Yep. Sorry, Topeka, did you have a comment? No? Okay, good. All right. Well,
sorry, Ali, before we proceed, I just want to pick up something about the healthcare. I think because it's a very sensitive topic, I would recommend people to check on the website, because even today, like, the embassy did an announcement that their S1 holders can also get an E-HIC to travel to different European countries. And technically on the website, they were saying that they can still, when they go and visit the UK, they can still access at least primary care, emergency treatment, and, you know, so the S1 holders are different. So those who are, for example, if you are a UK national and you have healthcare in Spain because you're working in Spain, then you will anyways have an EHIC card because you're paying contributions in Spain. But that EHIC, that European healthcare card, will be issued by the Spanish authorities, and you will be able to use it in European countries. But when you go and visit the UK, then it's the system of the UK. But S1 holders are a different story. They have certain, you know, conditions. So it would be worth for S1 holders to check all the updates on the Living in Spain website.
Okay, and just to clarify, an EHIC is a European health insurance card. Yeah, and we as UK nationals can actually, as you mentioned, get one from Spain. If we're Spanish residents, we can get one from Spain that we can use in Europe. Good. Okay, well, thank you very much to the experts. There's been a lot of useful information shared this afternoon.
There is one question, Ali, in the
Yep.
chat with regards from Richard.
Oh, is there? Oh, I missed that one, sorry. Oh, I think that's gone to you direct. I can't see one. You'll have to read it for me.
First year of tax residence. How does that
You're breaking up, Natasha. Can you repeat the question? Natasha, are you still there? Or
Looks like she's gone, Ali.
okay, yeah.
Can I just raise something, Ali? Something I kind of like raising. There was Tim and Lucia, and both of them gave a good answer when I asked them last time. And basically today, on the back of that advice from Fitzer yesterday, you know, IAG, the owner of British Airways, went up. Their stock market share went up by 50%. So when you're asking, you know, is it a good time to invest? I think it's always a good time to invest, right, Lucia and Tim? And but what I asked you during COVID was, you know, if you've got, you know, cash is king, isn't it? Basically, cash in your bank account is king. And you gave a great answer, Tim. Do you want to kind of, you know, give me your thoughts on why cash may not be such a good thing and may not be king?
Sorry, you broke up for a very small, a few seconds during right at the end. Can you repeat the very last question?
So what I was saying, Tim, is, you know, basically during COVID, when we had a similar call, I said to you, cash is king, isn't it? You know, cash in the bank means you'll survive this crisis, and you'll still have some money to pay for your bills, to put food on your family's table, and to live, and you'll come out of this, and hopefully we'll all come out of this. And you gave a great answer that maybe cash is not king.
I don't remember which answer that I gave, but well, cash is king. When we're talking about cash, it's cash in a bank, and normally you would get an interest on your money in the bank account. Until 2007, 2008, you could get easily 5, 6, 7%, and inflation was around 2-3%. At the moment, it's the other way around. Inflation is still 2-3%. The governments want us to believe that it's lower because that's in their interest, because then they don't have to increase pension payments, state pensions, etc., by that much. But if you go to Mercadona, you fill your trolley completely full for 100 euros and you buy exactly the same next year, then you'll probably pay more than 103 for that. So because those things that we buy on a day-to-day basis, they tend to go up slightly more. What keeps inflation down are electronics or petrol at the moment, for example. So if you've got a lot of money sitting on a bank account, then that's really going down by 3% a year. So to put it in figures, someone with a lot of cash on a bank account from the proceeds of the sale of a property or so, for example, that means if you've got 100,000 on a bank account, that means that you're losing around 3,000 a year buying power. That means that you're burning around 270 every month, more or less. People obviously think of the stock market as being volatile, or they see headlines when it goes bad. But the benefit of having good investment funds is that it's asset backed. It represents real value. So if you've got investments, balanced funds in good companies that like your Coca-Colas and etc., then there will be some volatility, but because it's asset backed and companies are doing well, then you should still do better than inflation. So as long as inflation or interest rates are below the rate of inflation, you're really burning money. And there's all types of statistics, such as it costs you more to miss out on the 10 best days in the stock market over a year than to lose on the worst 10 days over a year. So it's key to just, when we had the COVID thing, the lockdown, which is when we had a presentation like this one, then we were at the bottom. And what you don't want to do is come out of an investment at the bottom. Markets overreact, but they always readjust to normal levels. I don't remember if that was along the words that I used back then. But
Tim, that was spot on. That was spot on.
With regards to now what we've been through, what is different this time is that there's a lot of winners and there's a lot of losers. The losers were obvious: your leisure companies, airline companies, the fossil fuel companies, petrol companies. The winners were technology companies, renewable energy companies, things like Tesla. So we do see a shift. And if you ask me, okay, where is the opportunity, the investment opportunity? Well, from the 1st of January next year, we as advisors, when we take on a client, we need to discuss with each and every client ESG criteria. ESG stands for environmental, social, and governance criteria. That has to do with carbon footprints, with plastic consumption, with long supply chains of companies, also with, for example, the governments, how they treat women, if women have equal rights within the company and equal possibilities, etc., which is quite relevant to Costa Women, for example. So what you see is that companies that adhere to these ESG criteria have been doing very well. And we see that there's a lot of opportunity. We've all been shaken up with this COVID crisis, and we've all kind of reflected to ourselves, aren't we consuming our planet in a way that's a little bit too much? And I think there's an important shift there, where there's where these ESG criteria is where the real investment opportunities are going to be going forward.
Brilliant, thank you, Tim. Natasha is back in the room. So Natasha, if you'd like to share the question that you were asked and your answer, please.
Hi there, sorry, don't know what happened. My Wi-Fi just went off and I got kicked out and I went on major panic. I'm like, oh my God, how do I get back in? Sorry about that. Okay, Richard Fowler asked a question in the chat, and it's with regards to the situation that many people are faced with in their first year of becoming a tax resident in Spain. Of course, the April to April is the tax year in the UK, and then if they come over here to Spain, perhaps within that year, then they've got to pay tax on from January to December. So it really depends on what source of income we're going to be referring to. But normally what you would do there is you would offset any tax that you've paid on that source of income from January as a credit in your return, or alternative, when you submit your FD9 form. If it's pension income, for example, the FD9 form is a form which comes in both English and Spanish. And you would apply for the tax relief to be applicable as from the 1st of January that year that you're becoming a tax resident. If you were working in that country, then you would need to make sure that in that other country you were considered as a non-resident for that interim period. But there's no split year in Spain as there is in the UK. So you would be liable for tax from anything as from January to December.
Brilliant, thank you.
Okay.
Can I get the experts actually to drop a note? See, Natasha's done it and Deepika's done it. Drop your contact details into the chat so that if anybody wants to contact you after this Zoom call, they have got your details there. And I think it's been very informative. If anybody else has a final question, please also drop that into the chat. If not, we will, once the experts have put their details in there, we will wrap the call up. We've done various of these calls previously, so the majority of them are on the My Lawyer in Spain YouTube channel. So if you haven't found that yet, just go to YouTube and look for My Lawyer in Spain, and we've put a lot of the topics that we've covered this afternoon and more are in that YouTube channel as well. Good. Okay, I think that's everybody's contact details in there. Have I missed anybody? Alex, are yours in there?
Yeah, I put those in there, Ali, and
Right.
thank you once again for hosting a great event, and good to see everyone on the call. Lots of interesting stuff, and stay safe, everyone.
Yep, good. Thank you. Thanks everybody for joining us. See you again soon.
Thank
Bye.
you. See you soon.